Acid mine drainage, otherwise known as AMDs, are one of the highest contributors to the declining environmental health in our nation, especially Pennsylvania. Acid mine drainage can lower the pH of a stream to a level of 4.0 or lower, equivalent to battery acid, which can kill off many living organisms that inhabit the streams. For example, acid runoff in the Summitville mine in Colorado killed all biological life in a 17-mile stretch of the Alamosa River. This we can conclude that AMDs are toxic to all biological life, including humans, and treatment solutions come at a high cost. If designated as a federal Superfund site, the EPA could be spending as much as $30,000 a day to treat the acid runoff from the mines. Being an environmental science student at Mansfield University, I've had a pleasure of learning extensively on this subject through many different courses, and further research conducted through the EPA and other environmental resources provided me with further information on the subject. An overall preview for this speech is that I'll be talking about how AMDs readily pollute our water and where they are located, what the effects are of AMDs and how they harm us, and how do we mitigate such detrimental effects that have harmed our ecosystem. This brings us to the first point, and that's how they pollute our water. This is like where they're located, first of all, is near operating or abandoned coal mines. Throughout PA, especially the central and northern tier, we have lots of coal mines, abandoned and operating, and new natural gas mines that are being explored. The abundance of streams in the surrounding areas are also a factor because these are the streams that will be polluted if there is acid mine runoff from these operations. How do they pollute? They run off certain chemicals. The main chemical is iron oxides. This comes from the oxidation of pyrite, otherwise known as fool's gold, as we all know it. And this can pollute our streams, and it even leaves behind an orange coating in our streams. So if you see that in a stream, you should know that it's polluted most likely from iron oxides and therefore might be from acid mine runoff. This also comes from the poor management of mining operations, especially from the late 1800s into the early 1970s. There wasn't much EPA, if at all, EPA interaction within coal mining and other sorts of mining operations. So the operations were definitely not suitable for the environmental impacts that have occurred from current operations. From that comes the impacts on our ecosystem, and that includes what happens to our biological life and the ecosystem around it. Fish, for such, act as giant sponges in water, as from one of my sources that I've put in my references section. Basically, they can suck up anything, especially the heavy metals that can make asphyxiation happen or infertility in fish, meaning that populations will decrease from the lack of reproduction. And the declining populations, obviously they occur from what I've just said, but you will notice in these streams, especially ones with lower pHs, that the pollutions are a lot lower, especially in some populations. Then the impacts on humans, especially drinking water impacts. If we consume heavy metals through waters that are impacted from AMDs, we can have many different things go wrong with our body. Everything from reproductive to all other types of systems in our body, and they can impact our kidney, lungs, livers, basically any organ in our body. So we need to watch out, especially when we're using waters that may have been impacted or could be impacted. And like low levels of these things are okay for everyday diets, but high levels of these are not good for us. And then comes treating the water. There are many different ways you can treat the water. Most require water treatment plants. These water treatment plants bring in the tainted water, throw it through a process that cleans out heavy metals, and then releases the water back into the watershed. The issue with this is the cost. Cost is detrimental and to the issue that occurs. Cost is extensively higher, and it's not very feasible for most people to do, especially through government grants. Government grants won't even cover the entire cost of saving polluted waters because it takes a lot, and you have to keep doing it over years and years and years, especially with the Summitville mine, which will require $2 million each year to keep fixing it, even though it's already somewhat cleaned. And it's going to cost Colorado all that money. What can you do in situations like this? Obviously, have your water tested. If you don't have your water tested, you don't know what's in it. And if there is something in it, and it's going to harm you. That's plain and simple. It's going to harm you. Otherwise, you can use different types of filters that remove heavy metals. They might come at a small cost, but it's better than having medical bills that are going to rack up from different type of degenerative diseases that occur throughout your body. Um, Other economic impacts that include Superfund sites. They are funded by the EPA. The issue with that is there's only so much money set aside for the EPA to use. So if there's multiple different sites, which there are across the nation, there's a lot of different sites, then there won't be a lot of funds for every site to clean themselves up. And then, obviously, to review that, we discussed how AMDs readily pollute our water and where they are located, what the effects of AMDs are, and how they can harm us, as well as how do we mitigate such detrimental effects that have harmed our ecosystem. AMDs are toxic to all biological life, and humans and treatment solutions are come at a high cost, as previously stated, and if designated as a federal Superfund site, the EPA could be spending as much as $30,000 a day to treat acid runoff. For my concluding statement, mines are opening and closing every day, and you never know if you're in an area that could be affected next, so please know what is going on within your area, and if a mining operation comes in, either try to get it out of there, or make sure that the company is taking the right steps to make sure that there is no pollution that will occur. Also, the next time you see a river or a stream that is orange in color, remember the detrimental impacts that might be occurring. Fish are probably being affected. Humans could be being affected, especially with their drinking water. And overall, like agricultural impacts as well. If your livestock are drinking this water, it will very, very well affect them and cause detrimental effects on them. Thank you.